What's up, sailors? Welcome back to the channel. So as you can see, I'm still working on this Tohatsu 2-stroke, and if you remember in the last episode, got as far as trying to free up this piston. Now the whole thing was rusted out, as you know, took it apart. The piston is absolutely seized, but I have managed to get it moving outwards like that. So the next thing I need to get on and do is try and push it back in. I don't want to take the piston out because I'm going to have to get new piston rings and it's going to be a big issue. So I just want to really sort of start working it a bit loose, enough so that when I put the flywheel and the pull cord back on, it should be nice and freed up and easy. So let's go over to the vise here and use a bit of heat, bit of lubricant, and let's get this thing moving. Right. Need to get this piston freed up properly, and in order to do that I'm going to put some pressure on here. Going to have to impact on the actual piston itself, so that means I can't clamp this end because obviously the bottom end is attached to the piston, and if I hit the piston and put force on that and this is clamped, I could crack the piston. So I'm going to use the vise, and the idea is to rest the vise on here. I'm not going to clamp it in, I'm literally going to rest it on the casing, just there and there, and hopefully not put too much force on there. And at the same time, I'm still trying to retain this old gasket. I will replace it eventually, but for now I want to just stick with the old one. So I'll pop that in there, push that in there. Now it's actually seated nicely on there, but it's not actually clamped in. As you can see, the bottom end there is still loose with the spindle and the bearings. So I'm going to add some heat on it, a bit of anti-seize, and then I'm going to use a socket, pop it in there, and use a nice big hammer. Brought you in a bit closer, obviously. Put quite a bit of heat on there, and I've also put some anti-seize in there as well. So I'm going to pop that on there. Now what I need to do is, I don't want to absolutely wallop it. I just need to tap it enough just to try and loose it up, and then if I can get it to retract, as it were, then I can turn it over and push it the other way, and hopefully I might be able to get it sort of loosened up. So let's give it a go. I don't know if you actually saw that, but it is moving down. It is actually moving, so I'm really pleased about that. So I'm going to keep going, and let's see how far we can get this moved. Okay, well, it's actually gone down quite a bit now, certainly a good centimetre or so. The bottom end is actually now touching the bottom of the vise there, so I can't go down any more. But what I'm going to try and do is flip it over, knock it the other way. Hopefully this is going to start loosening it up. So here I go. Right, it's really starting to free up quite nicely now. I mean, it's not loose, it's nowhere near where I want it to be, but we're making progress. Now, I'm holding on to the bottom end here with my hand so it doesn't touch the vise, and then hopefully we can get this socket down a bit further and get the piston down but it's certainly getting a lot easier now. Actually, I'm going to add some lubricant. Just to help it along all the time. So let's give it some more taps and hopefully it should move down a bit easier this time. Yeah, there we go. I mean, it's just gone down so easily now. Right, I'm going to keep going with that and let's see how far I can get. Hopefully, it's going to be just where I need it to be. So I've been freeing it up a bit more. Now, as you can see, the actual piston rod is pretty much at its maximum it would be when the piston's all the way down, as it were. So that's really good. So I know that's the max I need to push the piston down. Don't need to go any further. Interestingly, obviously, if we can see in there, we can see the exhaust and air intakes there. So that's good that you know, they're not obviously damaged, but they're exposed enough that it's working. So I'm going to carry on just freeing that up. I don't want to put sandpaper and stuff. I mean, this is probably pretty worn out and damaged just from being rusted and that. But I know if I start playing around with sandpaper and things, I could really damage it. I could use one of those proper honing tools. But again, I just want to get this outboard working. I'll be happy enough with that, and then if I can get it all running, then I'll look into maybe some better improvements. So I'm going to keep carrying on, and I'll be back. So I've spent about 10 minutes or so just tapping it on this side, and then again on the piston there. It's moving quite easily, certainly on the hammer, but I can't move it by hand yet. We're not quite there yet, but it is getting easier, definitely. Just one thing to note, if you ever do this, if you look on the, if you just see there's a little metal post there on the bearing, make sure that that is not inside here, because otherwise you'll just snap that off. There's one on the other side as well, just on the top there. So just make sure you know where your little metal posts are so you don't break them. So what I'm thinking of doing now is I'm putting the other side of the casing on there, so it's clamped and clamped the bearings in, so it's as it should be. And then I'm probably going to see whether I can use, I don't know, a spanner or something on there and just gently turn that around and basically put the piston through its motions as it's meant to be and see whether I can free it up that way a bit more. Once it gets a bit free that way, I can then obviously maybe put a power tool or something on it, and hopefully that will get some speed into that piston and get it worn in properly. So I'll get that casing back on and then pop back and show you how I'm getting on. So here's a little tip for you. If you're putting your outboard back together, remember I mentioned about these little tiny pegs earlier on, these little metal pegs? Well, make sure that when you put it together, the little peg is in its little slot. There's one there, and the other side just tucks in there. Make sure they're not here or on the other side, because otherwise it's going to foul on the casing down. When you put the two together, it's not going to fit properly together. So just make sure, little tip, that those are in there. Also, I'm going to add some spray grease. Now in the long run, obviously I want to put some proper grease and that in there, but for now, just to free things up, I'll put some spray grease. And the other reason is because, don't forget, using penetrating oil is quite good for loosening things up, but it's not a lubricant. In fact, it could actually have the opposite effect. So always make sure when you use some anti-seize, add some grease or something, just replace it. So I'm going to get the other side of the casing on, bolt it together, and see if we can free it up some more. bolts back in there. Don't make the mistake I made. I got that caught right in there and pinched it. But I think it's going to be all right, so not going to worry about it. So the bolts aren't too tight. They're just enough, really, just to keep it together. So what I'm going to try and do is put a bit of force onto the drive shaft as it is, and see if I can force the piston up and down. It's not supposed to actually work like that. Obviously, it works the opposite way around. The piston goes up and down and turns the drive shaft. But if I can get that to turn by using that, that should hopefully then wear down the piston balls and the rings and get them bedded in a bit easier. And certainly if I can turn that, then I should be able to get the pull start working. So I'm going to get on with that. I'm going to clamp the drive shaft there into the device. Let's just tighten that up a bit. And basically I'm just going to give this a wiggle and see whether we get any success. So obviously by clamping that, I'm just turning this, yeah, straight away. There we go. I don't know if you can see there, but the piston's moving in and out. Look at that. That's fantastic. That's freeing up nice. So I'm going to add a bit more anti-seize. Just keep throwing the anti-seize at it. Just get some more in there. Just to, I can't use enough of it. I really, really can't. That's it. Oh wow! Look at that. Right. So I need to keep going so that the piston does its full turn. Look at that. Right, time to put a bit of power in there, I think, and see what happens. Got a 7/16 socket here, which fits very nicely onto the shaft there. And then I'm going to use this impact driver to spin the shaft over. So I'm going to bring you a bit closer onto the piston there so we can see that moving. Well, it was a partial success, but socket's stuck on there now, and yeah. So I'm going to whip that socket off and try another method, but that was certainly moving quite nicely then, wasn't it? So we're definitely on the way. So yeah, off with the socket, and let's try another method. Socket's off, so that's good. And I put a vice grip on there for now, and look how nicely that moves. That piston in there, it's moving nice and freely. I think an hour or so ago I couldn't move that by hand at all. So I'm going to keep on lubricating, moving some more. It does pretty much seem to be there, I think. It's only when the piston's fully up that it actually seems to stick a bit. So I'll give it a little bit more lubricant, a bit more movement, just to be on the safe side. And then, well, I guess I'm going to start putting it back together, which, well, I never thought I was going to get this far. But there you go. I like a challenge, and so far, we're winning. So, let me explain where I'm at with all this. The good news is the piston's all freed up now. Spins over by hand, no problem at all. So, I'm really pleased about that. That was a major hurdle, and we've done that. That's absolutely great. Two issues, though, popped up. One of them, quite important, really. This is the flywheel, and as you probably know, a little groove there has a little key, a little metal key goes in there. That slots in on the shaft there, so that when we get the pull cord, give it a good pull, all locks in. Without that little metal key, I can't pull start, and well, I've lost it, basically. No idea where it is. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. I'm not going to find it in here, so I'm going to assume I've lost it. So I got a couple of choices on that. I could pinch one off another outboard, or I could make one. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make one, So when it's all put back together, you don't have to worry about that. And the other thing is, I've no idea how this goes back together, to be honest. I've got a box of bits, I've got bits everywhere. I've got a bit of an idea where some pieces go and others I don't know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sleep on it, going to do a bit of research and then get back on with it tomorrow morning. Well, good morning. It is the next day and very pleased to say that the piston is still moving freely. So that didn't seize up overnight. Didn't expect it to, but obviously it's good to see it's all moving fine. So my main task for today is to get the engine back together in one piece and then connect it up to the shaft. And then with a bit of luck, we can see if we can get this started. So leave it with me and I'm going to get on and put all these bits back together. So I'm progressing through, as you can see. Just a couple of things. You might notice I took the casing off. That's because there's two little metal dowels that I've taken out and I've forgotten to put back in. So I've put those back in and tightened all that up. Now, around the piston here, as you probably know, there's a water jacket all the way around there. Now, when cleaning that out, you need to get right the way in, right the way down. It actually goes down quite deep. You need to make sure you get down quite deep. And there's a couple of holes in there, the inlets, I guess. And you need to make sure that the inlets there are really cleaned out. I use pipe cleaners or a little gadget like this for cleaning out pipes and that. Give it a good clean out and also make sure that the outlet here, pop that off and just make sure that the outlet isn't blocked up as well. If you don't unblock all the water channels, obviously you run a big risk of overheating. So I'm going to get on and clean the rest of this crud out. So before I get this completely back together, I'm just cleaning out the water jacket chamber, which is around the outside of the piston here. Now, if you're going to do this job, just bear in mind there's two little water inlets on either side here. If you actually look at the casing, if I bring that in a bit closer, we should be able to see just here, that's actually a tube in the casting. There's one either side and that's what you're looking for. So inside there, there's a little, the other end of the tube. It's like a bit of a dog leg, little right-handled dog leg there. And there's one there and one there. So what I'm doing, I've been cleaning it out using pipe cleaner and some carb cleaner. And a way of knowing that it's completely cleared through is basically if I just spray into the hole here, there you see it all coming out and it's coming out clean as well. And there's one on this side as well. So if I give that a, you can see it, it's all dripping out. So that means the main thing is the actual inlets are clear. I've been working on the outlet as well here. I popped the little rubber pipe off from there. So I've pinged that off because I want to make sure obviously the water can get out. It needs to circulate around the whole system. And also, if that's blocked up, I'm not going to know if anything else is blocked as well. So I need to see the water come up through and pop out the outlet to know that it's cooling properly. So what I've done with this, kind of similar really. I popped off the rubber pipe and I got a piece of copper wire here. And all I've done really is I've just popped a little copper wire in there, giving it a bit of a good clean out. And again, I just sprayed a bit of cleaner through there just to get it all nice. I could actually probably, there, it's pouring out, so I know that's okay. I could probably just pop that nipple off, give it a good clean out and all that. But it seems to be quite well sort of seized on there, and I don't want to damage anything. I don't need to. So anyway, I've cleaned that out there. We know that the inlet and the outlets are all clear, which is the main thing. And obviously I have to check on the shaft to make sure that the inlet on that is pulling the water all the way up to the top there. So the next task is to get the top of the piston plate put on here. One issue, if you can see, I've actually snapped a screw off there. I snapped my head off, so I'm going to have to take that out gently and find a replacement. Not too worried about that, it should be fairly easy. The other thing is the actual plate that goes on here, that bolts on like that and goes together. The problem I discovered with this, which is quite remarkable, is if you look at all the crud in there, all the rust and everything. And what's really interesting is the spark plug hole is actually quite small. Now, on closer inspection, that is actually, if you look very closely, that is the bottom of a spark plug. So obviously at some point in the past, the spark plug has snapped off and left the bottom in there. So I'm going to have to quite gently, carefully remove that. I don't want to damage the screw thread, obviously, because I need to put another spark plug in. So I'm going to get on and get that removed. Well, as you can see, it's still stuck. I've used heat and anti-seize and everything, and it's just not budging. Also use this tool here as well, and that's used for extracting nuts and things which are jammed in, and it didn't have any effect at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack it from the other side and see if I can have any more luck doing it that way. Well, that went well, didn't it? Yeah, I spent about 2 hours using blow torches, chisels, penetrating oil, had it in the vise. I was smacking away with hammers and absolutely everything. And that's pretty much the end result. It's still stuck in there. In fact, it's pretty much ruined. I'll show you the other side. This side's even worse. Look at that, just gouged out. You'll probably know a much better way of getting that spark plug out of there, but to be honest, I've just got to use what I've got. So unfortunately, I think that's had it, but I'm not one to give up. I do have a backup plan, and that is I have another one. And this one comes off the 3.5 and is obviously in excellent condition. And as you saw in the previous video, we know that that one actually works. So what I'm going to do as a temporary measure is I'm going to fit this one onto this outboard just to get it going. And if this outboard is a runner and get it moving, then I'll just go and get a replacement one and put that one back on. So off I go. I'm going to crack on. Okay, well, welcome back. As you can see, it's all back together pretty much in one piece. It's taken probably about 3-4 hours, that bit, because there's so many little bits missing. There was a seized bolt actually on the cylinder head in there. Didn't manage to get that out, unfortunately. So that's a little bit worrying. but well, we'll just have to make do with it. A couple of other things. Carburettor was all loose, tightened all that up. I think I've got all the wiring right as well. And the little pin that goes in the starter on the pull cord up there, that was missing. I fabricated one. It worked. Not sure how long it will last, but it should work enough for that. And let's have a look. And obviously reconnected the water outlet there as well. In general, not too bad. Whether it'll work or not, I really honestly have absolutely no idea. I'll show you one thing though. Now I've got no fuel in here. So if I give it a bit of a pull, I don't know if you can hear, but there is compression there, and that piston actually moves just the same as the others. So it's all looking quite good at the moment. So what I've got to do now is pop a bit of fuel in there. Oh, and the other thing, the kill switch is, well, it's dead. It doesn't work at all. I took it apart. It's completely rusted out. If you're coming a bit closer there, that's basically all I've got there. So it's not going to do anything. So that's a waste of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to resort to just pulling the spark plug out. We'll run that bit again. It's okay, because I can just jump it. So what I'm going to do is basically just resort to popping the spark plug out to stop it. Not the conventional way, but I don't really have any choice at the moment. But if it is a runner and it works fine, then I'll look into replacing all the other bits. But today, I just really want to get it going. So I shall pop some fuel in now. Just using the 10-to-1. That should be about enough there. Now I've got the bucket of water here, remembering to fill it up enough so that we're covering the exhaust and the inlet. You can just see it down there. And this will no doubt probably make quite a bit of noise. So fuel's in there now, so I'll just open up the valve on the top here to let the air go through, and I'll just open up the valve here to let the fuel go into the carburettor. Choke's open, the throttle is on the start position, although it's very wobbly, and well, I'll give it a couple of pulls and we'll see what happens, so fingers crossed. Well, it doesn't seem to be wanting to start, so I'll just keep going. It's obviously not run for a very, very long time. We pulled it apart and everything, so not too surprising, but let's just keep going. Right, so I've been pulling away at this outboard for a while, and it's not kicking off at all. It does feel like it's trying to. So the first thing we're going to check now is to see whether we've got a spark.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I'll give a couple of pulls on the pull cord here, and hopefully we should see a spark. Is there any spark there?
Yeah.
You can see a spark.
Yes.
Fantastic. Right, so that rules that out. We know we've got a spark, so that's not the problem. So we'll pop that back in again, and we know we're getting fuel as well because we can smell that, but not absolutely certain if it's getting all the way into the piston there, because I can't, it's not sort of flooded or anything, so maybe need to do some adjustment on the carburettor here. Maybe that's the problem, it's not getting the fuel through. So yeah, we'll pop the spark plug back in now and move on to the fuel. Well, sadly, I think we've come to the end of the road on this poor little outboard. I've got a spark, we've got fuel, we've got air obviously coming through. I've changed the kill switch over. I don't think it'll make much difference at all, but I've done it anyway. So, well, after spending, what, 2 days playing around with this, rebuilding and everything, I think it's safe to say that the outboard's dead. I suspect that the problem is compression. I'm guessing that's what it is. There's no compression, there's not enough compression in there. If it's got everything else, and let's face it, these outboards are quite simple, and it's not starting, that's where I put my money. Obviously, if you know different or you've got a better idea, let me know down in the comments. I'm a newbie at this sort of thing, I'm not an expert. There might be something that I'm missing out, something blatantly obvious I'm doing wrong. But as I said, sadly, I think that's probably the end of it for this one. I'm sorry I couldn't get it going. It would have been fantastic to get it started and that. But, you know, we can't win them all. That's the way it is, but at least we give it a go. And I've certainly learned a huge amount from playing around with this outboard. It's really expanded my knowledge, and hopefully, you know, maybe you learnt something as well. So with all that being said, I'm going to end this episode and obviously this series on the Tohatsu 2.5 short shaft, which never ran. So whatever you're doing, look after yourselves. Thanks to all the subscribers, nearly at 300 today. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.